Gene did not go and find a hooker. Gene had a hooker in his back pocket.
Because of course it
Because of course he does.
Podcasts, the 21st Century Radio Show. Two friends were hit by quarantine and found themselves bored in 2020. But they committed the one taboo among content creators. Never start a podcast because you're bored. Will they go mad? Give up? Or finish watching each other's favourite shows? Whatever happens, listen with care. For what could equal the horror of spoilers.
Welcome to the Sin and Violence Podcast. I'm Kara.
And I'm Ginger.
And in this show, we will be discussing and doing somewhat daily recaps of the series Life on Mars and the anime Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. And boy, this week was sinful and violent in both.
This indeterminate time period was sinful and violent. Yes.
Indeterminate time period. By the very last episode, I will be saying indeterminate time period, and it'll be too late.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. It's alright. But there was sin and violence in both.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially, I will give the edge to Life on Mars as a classically sinful episode.
I will actually give the edge to Fullmetal Alchemist as the very violent one.
True. Yeah. It's almost like our shows trade off and carry similar motifs.
Even though we didn't plan it. That aside, let's get rolling, and it is very windy outside where I am today, so if that comes through, I apologize.
Cool.
Okay. Oh yeah, it's wild out there. So, Life on Mars, Season 2, Episode 4, it's the wife-swapping episode!
Yay.
I'm sorry, it's hilarious. It's actually a really good episode for a lot of reasons.
Oh, it's funny. I'm just saying. Yay.
Think of it as the wife-swapping episode.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like every show has. You have the beach episode, Anyway, so we kick off with a flashback to baby Sam's Auntie Heather, very briefly, and now in 1973, Sam is no longer getting any TV or radio messages, so he's messing around actually trying to hear from the doctors and strange TV people, etc. But there's nothing, it's static now. So, the squad goes out to a wasteland area where a woman has been found dead. There is also a girl cussin'. She has Tourette's, probably. As they are investigating the woman, the dead woman, Sam sniffs her hair. It's weird, but it's important. But it's weird. At the morgue, as they are investigating the lady, the boys talk dating, which is the other big theme of this episode. Dating. Everyone sucks at it. Chris might have a girlfriend. Everyone has theories on how far he should go with this girlfriend and how he should get there. It's all bad advice, frankly. Back to the actual murder case. The victim died of a blow to the head. That is probably all that was done to her, and she was holding a red flower crushed in one hand. Gene Hunt ties this back to a 5-year-old case of a murderer-rapist in Manchester that they nicknamed Mank the Knife, whose calling card was leaving a crushed red geranium in his victim's hand. So Gene is like, oh shit, I put the guy away a handful of years ago, and now he's back. I want to make sure that, we have the right person put away and that this isn't a copycat, etc. So, between a potential murderer-rapist on the loose and the fact that Annie got groped trying to bring in a suspect, Sam gets very protective of Annie, asks to walk her home, and she responds in a way. And the way is not yes. So, later on, Sam is walking along and he sees a girl get thrown out of a sports car. He goes to get the girl, takes her to a bar to recover. Her name is Denise. She is shaken, but she's not actually saying anything to him, despite him trying to help her. He goes to get a drink, and when he turns around, she is gone. Sam has noticed, by the way, that the perfume she is wearing is the same thing that he smelled on the murder victim, and is also the same thing that his Aunt Heather from the beginning would wear. It was a perfume from a cosmetics company in England called Beauvoir. and it's something the Beauvoir ladies would wear. It's kind of, I guess it's like Avon or Mary Kay over here, but they have these red and white uniforms. So, sure enough, a Beauvoir lady is reported missing, and when the husband is brought in to ID the dead body they found at the beginning, it is her. So Sam and Annie go to the Beauvoir building. They spot Denise, the one who ran away from Sam, and Annie goes jumping out of the car and tackles her, which is awesome.
Action, Annie!
Good job, Annie. Back at the station, Denise admits that she and the deceased used to work together for extra money as, like, toga girls at these wife-swapping parties in the suburbs. And if someone was ever not pleased with the wife they got, then these girls would step in and help. And when she was in the car with the host of these parties, and she's like, hey, where's my friend who disappeared? He chucked her out of the car. He, like, yeeted her out of the car. As...
He did not respectfully yeet her out of the car. He very disrespectfully yeeted her out of the car.
Very disrespectfully yeeted her out of the car onto the street. Now they have their information. Sam and the gang go to track down this particular gentleman. His name is Roger Twilling, and he looks like someone tried to buy Tim McInerney off Wish. He's a businessman in the suburbs, and Jean is like, oh my god, no, this is not our dude at all. But Sam wants to do surveillance, which Jean thinks is dumb. They place radios inside the car sales room, which is a fantastic scene. Because they sneak in, they pick the locks, which Jean thinks is girly. They're placing all the surveillance stuff. A cop car goes by and they're like, oh god, it's the law! And they're like, wait, we
are the law!
It's such a good episode. So later on at the bar, Chris is talking about his date with this girl from before. Jean is super interested in this, up until the point that Chris admits that he puked all over his date. The next day he asks Sam for help, because all the ladies like Sam. Sam's advice amounts to be yourself, and the other guys laugh at this, and also they're spying, they're using the surveillance radios to spy on Annie in the bathroom. Going on from here, it's undercover time. Sam and Annie have to get their story straight because they're pretending to be married.
Yay! Fanfic tropes reign again.
Literally all we need now is the coffee shop AU and the one where they're all high schoolers, and we'll just... and we'll have hit all the high points. So
we've already covered the Fullmetal Alchemist AU. We've done a lot of legwork for Life on Mars, but it itself has done a lot of legwork to write its own AUs, except they're not AUs, they're canon.
Basically. So yeah, we have the pretend married Sam and Annie. They're flirting a lot as they're doing this, so they go to the very suburban tennis courts as Tony and Cherie Blair. Which, good job, Sam. Congratulations on your A+ pseudonyms. While the rest of the team is surveilling in the van, and they go to meet with the Twillings, Roger and Carol. And they just sort of get right in there with the, oh, hey, we're new in town, and we really want to make some friends. Hey, could we totally hang out? And the Twillings are really for this. So they get invited to a very 70s party. I think that's the bit where someone asks, does anyone want to listen to Santana? And Sam's like, oh god. And the whole party stops.
Yeah, at the casual party is the Santana
that's at the casual, that's like at the screening party. That's at the casual 70s party with the weird food, and that's where we're going to find out, like, who's DTF. They are DTF. In the interim, Denise, the Beauvoir lady from before, she is now missing. So now it's wife-swapping party time. Their code word is Santana, if Annie should want to leave. So they get there, the guys throw the car keys in the bowl, they talk about, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. All the ladies get up and start taking their clothes off, and then Jean shows up! With a hooker.
Jean does in fact show up with a hooker. Which, it's... Actually, you know what? We'll discuss this later. Keep going.
I remember when I first saw the episode, I was like, only Gene Hunt would show up at a wife-swapping party with a Japanese hooker. And he just shows up his arm around her like, hey, guys, and she's just, like, chilling. And so she just starts getting undressed, and, Sam's like, Gordon, my good friend Gordon Brown, you're not invited. But one of the ladies there, Miss Luckhurst, kind of gives Gene the up and down, like, oh no, sure, he can stay. So, and he's like, okay, sick, yeah, I'll stay. And he ends up with Mrs. Luckhurst. I'm sure it was totally accidental. So Sam and Annie get paired off with the Twillings, and Mr. Twilling had the most wonderful, with giant air quotes lines, where he goes, "Oh God, we're not going to get stuck with our own wives, are we?"
Yeah.
And it's like, oh boy, dude. So
I detect some issues, maybe.
So Jean goes off with Miss Luckhurst. Suki goes off wherever she goes, just one of the rando guys. Annie goes off with Mr. Twilling, and Sam goes off with Carol Twilling, who, at the previous party, I should note, he was trying to snoop around their bedroom, and she caught him, and she's like, "What are you looking for?" And he's like, "I'm looking for you."
Yeah.
And
Sam Tanner needs to be pretending to be seductive and sexy all of a sudden.
He
Which,
tries.
I mean, admittedly, he pulls it off. And,
Yeah,
the scene, here's the good part. The scene cuts before we get too deep into what you think is going to happen. So, good. Good on you, show.
So, at the second time they meet, when they're paired off at the wife-swapping party, he's talking to her some, and he's like, aren't there conflicts of interest? I know you say, what happens here stays here, but, what if someone falls in love? And she's like, oh no, falling in love isn't allowed. Falling in love's against the rules. And all of a sudden they hear Annie shouting, and Sam's like, "Annie, my Annie, I must save her!" And they go running to the other bedroom, and she's doing fine. Twilling's on the bed, she's got a whip, she's getting all the info she needs. Now, unfortunately, as Sam has yelled Annie instead of Cherie, and the jig is up, basically. So the Twillings get taken to the station because Roger Twilling has, Annie's gotten some information out of him. And he's also called his lawyer. So while he's being questioned, it's just no comment, no comment, no comment. Jean attempts to be tough, and the lawyer's like, or we could just tell the press that there are a bunch of cops at a wife-swapping party. So they're not sure what to do about that. Oh, that's right. Sam, on the way to talk to Carol, he sees the Beauvoir ladies who are being questioned, including his Aunt Heather. And he does the dumb thing. He tries to talk to Heather, like, "Hey, remember me?" And it's like, yeah, he's not doing this.
I just am so confused as to how Sam has not grasped the concept of stop being creepy.
He's kind of on and off with it, and he really goes full bore, because at the beginning of the episode, it was, Auntie Heather with little baby Sam, who clearly had a very bad fever, and she's like, "You're my favorite nephew, Sammy," and, all this very sweet stuff. And Sam just blurts out to total stranger Heather, "Oh, little Sammy's your favorite." And Heather's like, I gotta go. Understandably. So, moving on from there, Sam attempts to talk to Carol. She also won't talk, but she is like, "My husband couldn't kill a fly." So there's no leads. They got nothing. Sam and Jean are pissed off. Annie comes running in like, "Hey, guys, I did the surveillance, and I put in an extra transmitter in Twilling's car." And they hear Denise in the car, begging to be let go. So they go to Twilling with this stuff, and it's like, "Hey, where's your car?" And he's like, "I don't know where my car is." "Who's got your car?" "I don't know who has my car." And then over the radio, they hear a girl cussing. And they're like, "Oh, it's the Tourette's girl down in the wasteland area." So they go back down there. There's a caravan parked down there. Denise is sure enough there with the person attempting to murder her, who is, dun-da-da, the wife, Carol, as both have been let go. So it was the wife all along, getting a little jealous of the toga girls that her husband liked too much. So
Crazy.
So,
Just
yeah.
couldn't see that coming at all.
Funny that. So Annie takes Carol away. They all go to the pub after, because that's what you do after a job. You go to the pub.
At apparently 3 in the afternoon, I wanted to note. It looked very early in the day.
Heck yeah. It's 3 o'clock somewhere. Jean is like, "Good job, Annie. You did such a good job, you can buy me a drink." Which is much more how Jean would be treating Annie as compared to previous episodes. Chris comes back to Sam and is like, "Hey, the girlfriend gave me another chance," and shows Sam this absolutely adorable little strip of photos.
It's so cute.
Little photo booth photos, and the girl, you don't see her much, but she looks just like sweet little girl next door type. And it's just the most adorable thing.
So yeah, he's like, "Thanks, boss. I took your advice. It worked out. Yay!
Yeah.
Look at my cliche strip of photos to show how stinking cute we are."
Yeah. Sam and Annie meet up outside. They do a terrible job of flirting, because he nearly said the right thing. Because first he was like, "Let me walk you home." so that I can protect you from the bad men. And here he could have said, let me walk you home because I like you and I just like to walk with you, but it doesn't quite happen. And it ends with Sam seeing his aunt on the TV, and that is what we fade out from. So
anyway, this episode, I really want to talk about the fun stuff about this episode.
Oh, there's so much fun stuff in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, like, it was overall, again, I think this is interesting, where we've now had 2 back-to-back episodes that I thought were just really, really good, and I don't mean that to disparage other episodes, but just, like, I was really engaged in the previous episode and this episode. They were really interesting, and I think it's because, for 2 different reasons, whereas in the IRA episode, I was really engaged in the plot and what was going on, and then in this episode I was totally just ready for the character moments and just wanting all the character stuff to happen. And I almost feel like the whole murder plot was kind of background to the actual character plot, you know?
Yeah, they did a really good job of using it as a backdrop to character progression.
Yeah.
That this was really very much a look. This was very a Sam and Annie centric episode, whereas the previous one was a very, I don't want to say Ray centric, but more than usual.
Well, not even, I mean, like, yes, because Ray had the concussion and all that, but I feel like the previous episode was more engaged in it just kind of felt more story driven, which is why I was saying that I think it's a good episode to show somebody if they've never seen a Life on Mars episode. Whereas this episode, I kind of feel like you need to have more engagement with the characters in order to, like, fully enjoy it.
I think this is one of the downsides of the short British seasons, which is that at this point, I mean, I was engaged with Life on Mars from the first 10 minutes of the first episode because it was just wild. But I think with the previous episode and this episode, it's really just, it's so hitting its stride now. And I think this is where it's like, all right, we've introduced all the characters, we know their motivations, we have base level for them, and now we can just play.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's comfortable in its own skin, it knows the audience is there, and so it can just kind of play with its ideas and its characters.
And it's like, there's the downside and the upside to it. And the downside is there's only 4 episodes left, and the upside is there's not only 4 episodes left, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, no, this is really where you do get to see them evolve. We've had a couple of guest writers, we've got the show's creators playing around with it, and yeah, we're going to be in the back half of season 2 next time. So
I know we want to talk about the really fun thing. We want to talk about Sam and Annie, but
yes!
I do want to talk about Jean first. Because here's the thing about Jean, and now that we're halfway through season 2, and so now I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if this whole Jean has a wife thing is actually it's either going to be played straight, or it's going to be revealed to be a lie, or something weird. But the weirdness of this is, like, Jean's characterization in this episode, I feel, is the full wrap of Jean. As in, he is, in the beginning of the episode, he says that when the killer is on the loose, basically, he says, I want this to be a safe place for my mom and my wife.
Yep.
And then also, though, when the lads are talking down in the morgue, as you do, Ray is clearly a pervert, and he's also an obnoxious sexist. And it is very obnoxious. Just like,
Ray is like, look, if she doesn't put out on the first date, get rid of her.
Yeah, and we've seen Ray be obnoxiously sexist before, but I think very clearly we see it down there where Ray is going like, you gotta go all the way or nothing, and Jean is like, that's disgusting. Just grope her.
Oh yeah, they're talking about, the whole upstairs, downstairs, inside, outside thing, and so it's basically like, Ray, you absolute savage, just get in her bra. That's that's the decent thing.
Sam is having none of this, but they're talking to Chris, and because Chris is like, I have this date, and I think the real thing, though, is that Chris, I don't think is comfortable with either of those 2 solutions.
Oh gosh, no.
No, he's really not, and so therefore Chris is way more being like, he's being innocent Kohai, who's looking like, senpai, help me, and Sam is just off in his own world, just being like, I will not engage in this laddish behavior.
Lads.
So, but that's what I think is kind of funny with Jean, where just that whole, Jean is clearly protective of the females in his life.
Yes.
He has mentioned the wife before, and obviously, like, he has a mother, because we all do. But he also, when he's being written correctly, he is, I don't know, quote-unquote protective of Annie in a certain way.
Yeah.
Because he does come off as having this kind of, like, an old... We do know he likes an old-fashioned Western, you know? So he has this idea of the old-fashioned, like, the lawman and the protector. And so I do think that Jean is supposed to be written to be a chivalrous person, but he's also written to be a real person. So as much as he does have a chivalrous attitude, he also is the one who is saying stuff like, yeah, get in her bra on the first date. Because he is a man in the 1970s. So fine. I mean, I accept this, but this also makes Jean feel like a real character, you know? Like a real person.
I think the thing for Jean with Annie, and then just, you know, stuff like that in general, is he's very protective of women, but, I mean, he's also very protective of his team in a different way, where it's like, you know, I want you to do your job, but I'm not going to let anyone screw you over.
That's true, exactly.
So, Annie is this weird spot on the Venn diagram that he does not normally have to address, which is, I really want you to be safe so that you never have to see any of this horridness. However, I also want you to go out there and kick ass in the name of justice. What do I do?
Right, exactly.
So that should be where the conflict in having Annie on the team lies. Yeah.
And the flip side, though, you also see where he shows up later at the sex party with the hooker, and but at the same time, you're like, yes, that is a total Jean move. He even says the rest of the husbands and wives go off to be like, are we cool having this guy in our club? And Sam is like, what are you doing here? And Jean just goes, I let her off the hook for something, so she owes me. Like, Jean did not go and find a hooker. Jean had a hooker in his back pocket. Because of course he does.
And she doesn't even care.
It's she doesn't give a shit. She's just like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm here because I owe him a favor.
She got brought in on, you know, indecent behavior, and he's like, look, I gotta go undercover to a sex party. If you pretend to be my wife, I'll let you walk.
Yes.
And she's like, okay.
Yeah, sure, no problem, Robno. And, like, goes with him, and she's just kind of chilling there, and... Yeah. But at the same time, it's just really funny, because I think, like, Jean... I'm still trying to figure out how this all works out if this is going to have repercussions in the Jean has a wife, there is a Mrs. Hunt, and yet he goes off very gleefully with somebody else. So, I mean, I'm just trying to figure that one out, as in, it's either going to be unaddressed, or it will be addressed, and we're going to find out, or at least I will find out.
It's funny because the whole point of him bringing the hooker is like, well, I wouldn't bring my wife to this.
That's just it. See? I don't know what's going to happen. Because Jean at the same time is going, my wife is too good for this nonsense.
It's like, I wouldn't dare bring my wife to a sex party / undercover sting. You know?
He's very considerate.
It's very considerate of him. You know, it could be dangerous, and it's also very indecent. This is the kind of thing he has to do himself.
Exactly.
Look, he's my fave for a reason, okay?
I know, but what I'm saying is like, here's what it comes down to is everything Jean did in this episode, I went, yep, that checks out. Like, it all fit in line with who I have come to expect of him as a character. Whereas in the other episode where he's scoffing at Annie for not knowing how to shoot a gun, that was when I went, this is out of character for him.
Yeah.
So even though he's wildly all over the map here with women in this episode, everything I believed about him, though. Like, I believed all of it. I was like, yeah, it all makes sense.
It's all over the map, but it's also consistent because he's all over the map with women.
Yes.
But he's never just straight up an asshole for no reason. If he's an asshole to a woman, it's because even when it was like really early on, I think it was the first episode where like he and this lady that he was questioning, they were just about to like kick each other's asses. And it's like, yeah, but that was the situation, is she was being difficult and she did not care.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, if that ever happens, it's of the moment. It's not just, oh, this poor girl needs help. Well, fuck her.
Right.
Yeah. But,
alright, so Jean's been addressed. Now let's move on to the fun part. The reason we're actually here.
Right.
We want to talk about Sam and Annie.
Oh, Sam and Annie.
So, this whole time, here's the thing, is you have been telling me, basically, oh, Sam and Annie's a cute ship, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I get it. But Sam is also really obnoxiously weird and does things. But then this episode happened, and I can't lie because there are the chat logs. I was freaking out about Sam and Annie during our watch.
And it was so... That's the thing about this show, is the ships are S tier. They are top tier, but they really make you work for them. Like, they are slow burn.
They're slow burn, and yet it was really funny how it all kind of played out. Mm-hmm. Because what this episode proved to me, and I wanted to prove to the characters, was, oh my god, you two belong together so much.
I remember when we were watching the first part. I keep calling it the screener party because I don't know how else to refer to it.
Sure.
The not sex party, where they're just hanging out, and Sam just very undercover as husband and wife. Sam just very casually kisses Annie.
Yes.
And I remember you were just like, Yes. It's like, yep.
Oh my god.
Yep.
Because it was really funny where they decide, okay, we have to do this, and there's no sitcom stupid antics of like, oh, this is great, we're uncomfortable about this. Like they're like, yep, okay, that's what we're gonna do, and then they sit down in the office. And is this before or after tennis court, where they're getting their story straight?
It is before tennis court, and it's funny because the objection to it is initially Sam like, I want to keep you safe, he's still stuck on that, and Annie is just pushing ahead.
Yes.
She's like, here's our story. Yep, here's our story. Sure is. Are you sure? Here's more of our story. Are you sure? It's so cute that you were still a virgin, Annie.
Well, not only that, though, but, like, it wasn't just that, and just so that you're clear, listener, it wasn't Annie doing all the building here. Right. They're going back and forth about this, like, they're mutually building their backstory.
Yes, they are.
And they're just very easily going back and forth from each other to build this fake backstory between the two of them. And it was really funny where they didn't, like, they didn't oppose anything or try to correct or fix anything in the backgrounds. They just kind of like, oh, we were doing this. Oh, yeah, and then you did this. And, oh, yes, I did this. And, oh, yeah, and I did this. And it all works together very organically. Mm-hmm. And then they go to the party and they have to eat some terrible 1970s food. And I hate pineapple. I just think it's an abomination.
Those little pineapple, cheese, and onion hedgehog
I
thing.
hate pineapple, and so you just turn me off automatically from that food. I will never eat pineapple, period.
Pineapple bites your mouth back. Like, that's a scientific fact.
I won't eat it. Straight up. You will never see me eat pineapple, senpai, okay?
No, pineapple, scientifically proven, attacks you.
Yes. But also, I blame it for things in my life that I know I shouldn't blame pineapple on, but I blame pineapple for things that happened to me when I was a little kid, and so therefore, I will never consume pineapple.
I can't believe these wretched people made Sam and Annie eat pineapple.
I know, but...
How dare! That should have been the first clue.
More that was the first sight of evil, was the presence of pineapple.
It was the pineapple hedgehog, yes.
Yes. So, but it's really cute because they get served the hors d'oeuvres, and so Annie picks one up, and then she, like, awkwardly shoves it in Sam's face, and he eats it, and he just kind of, like, he has the expression that I would have, which is, and eats it, and then they're just doing cute coupley banter, and then they're doing more cute coupley banter later when they're approached by Mr. Knockoff from Wish. I forgot his name.
Oh, I can't remember the actual actor's name. I'm sure he's a lovely person with a fantastic career, but...
The character name, I meant.
I was comparing him to this actor named Tim McInerney, who was on Blackadder, and he was in that Ood episode of Doctor Who. He's the one who, like, turned into an Ood.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen him in a lot of Britcon, and he looks like, basically... kind of like a cheap waxwork version of him, which may have been the intent.
Probably.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is I looked at him, and I remember I even said to you, like, at the dinner scene that they had, I was like, I don't like him. Like, he was made up to look a certain way. And and then he looks normal, but that sort of, like, normal skeevy sort of thing.
He's that guy that your friend invites you to hang out with him and you don't know how to tell your friend, he hasn't done anything to me, but he unsettles me.
Exactly. He looks very unsettling, which I would choose to believe is deliberate because I find most human beings don't look that way.
I will say this show does a really good job of just finding vaguely unsettling looking people where they need to be.
Right. So, they have that, and also during like the dinner scene, they're individually talking about their mutual backstories, and I again say that you could have easily used that scene, and I will say like they really avoided a lot of cliches in this, where at the dinner scene they could have had a weird spat, and then oops, they're letting on that they're not actually married, and it doesn't happen. Or at the not down to fuck party, where Sam is wandering around and goes into the room and he's discovered, and they could have easily learned that into a cliche where Sam gets, blows his cover right away, and they don't. Yeah. And because I think it's like they're actually trying to get to a plot point here and not, so I really like that, along with them just kind of being adorable about things.
I think a bonus point of this particular episode is this is one of the first times that the majority of Sam and Annie's interaction in the episode has not been Sam going, I'm a future man from the future.
That is true. He's not being crazy Sam for once.
He just does that to his aunt.
Yes.
But no, this is kind of one of their first extended interactions where they're just being with each other for the sake of being with each other, for the sake of what's on the table now, and he's not trying to use her as, like,
his weird future therapist.
And
what gets me also is that we've seen before the two are clearly interested in each other.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they're clearly into each other in some degree or another, and as clearly Annie tried to ask him out on a movie date and all this crap.
And they nearly kissed over the table that one time.
I know. But I feel that also then, I would like to imagine that there's been off-screen things that we don't see. So it's probably like things happening off-screen that builds up the characters that we don't, was not shown on TV. So I imagine that Sam and Annie are probably at this weird juncture of a relationship where like they like each other, but then they're also kind of weirded out by each other, and they're really not sure about each other. Because, Sam is thinking Annie is maybe a figment of my imagination, and Annie is like, this guy pretends to be a weird future man.
Future man from the future.
I was happy to see them actually, they just clicked in this episode, and that was great, where there's no weird awkwardness, they just clicked. And it was like it was basically just a buffet of wonderfulness for all that shipper fuel I need in my heart. Like, I run on, like, 30% shipper fuel, 70% coffee, So I need it.
Oh, boy. Now, what kind of low-key broke my heart throughout the episode until it didn't was when Sam did the very protective thing of, there might be a rapist on the loose, and you just got groped, let me walk you home, and, he didn't express himself very well, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, she just started calling him sir for the whole episode. Yeah. And I was like, sir. Every time she said sir, my heart just went, And then at the very end, as they were walking away from each other, she called him Sam. And I was like, okay.
There was another point, though. It's because there is a slight undercurrent of this where Annie, I believe, basically is trying to prove herself. When they come in, I got groped. And all the guys are, ho, 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 ho. Like, really? Yeah. Okay. But there's a scene later, I believe it's after the non-party, I believe it was, where they're in the cafeteria. Uh-huh. It's in the middle of the episode, basically. And I agree with Sam 100% in this scene.
Sure.
And I also believe that Sam is basically just like, I want you to be safe because crazy shit's going down, so we don't know what's going to happen.
However, I also recommended you to be a detective constable.
Exactly. However, at one point, he says something, and Annie goes, it starts to do anything you can do, I can do better. And Sam cuts her off and is like, that's not the point. He said, this has nothing to do with this. This is not a competition. Again, he doesn't say it, but he's like, I asked for you to be in this position. I don't see you as an inferior. Cut that shit out. And I really I was like, yes! Finally, because I am so sick to death of that. I am absolutely just tired of the battle of the sexes BS that we have to put up with in a lot of our media. And I was just really happy to see Sam cut it off and be like, that is not even remotely on the radar here. You know, he's like, this has nothing to do with this. And clearly also not, because the two of them have to work together to get to the killer. Like, it's not going to work with with one of them, and it also is not going to work with, like, Sam and Jean. It has to be a man and a woman. It has to be Sam and Annie pretending to be husband and wife to get to their killer.
Yep.
So they have to be cooperative. And I was just like, yes, thanks, Sam! That's, like, the one time I will say this, because you're so annoying. I'm not actually mad at Sam. I just find him to be frustrating sometimes.
I don't think any of us is actually mad at Sam. We're just like, oh, buddy.
Yeah.
The thing about that scene when the unnamed background cop comes in with Annie and it's like, you know, ha ha, she got groped, and all the boys are like, that's what happens when you hire a girl, and Jean's just like, hey, yo, shut up.
Yeah.
And I was like, see, again, that is much more, you know, he's not joining in. He's like, hey, no, we should be talking about the actual case, not whatever this BS is. So I was very pleased with this episode for the funny reasons, for the shippy reasons, for the all over just it's a good episode reasons. Agreed. So we've had our violence with a side of sin. Shall we have our sin with a side of violence?
Our sin featuring violence. Yeah, so for Fullmetal Alchemist, our episodes we watched were episode 23, Girl on the Battlefield, and episode 24, Inside the Belly. In episode 23, we open up with Ling carrying Lan Fan, because recall that they got a little bit knocked around by Wrath, King Bradley, and Gluttony. And Lan Fan is severely injured. She kind of has like a weird dangling arm thing. So here's what ends up happening. We have Ed and Al once again battling Scar, and they're at like a train yard. They've moved kind of over to a train yard. And, you know, during their fight, you know, Ling bursts up from I don't know where he came from. The sewers? Yeah, they were in the sewers. That is correct. Ling bursts up from the sewers. He is suddenly magically shirtless. Or jacketless, I should say. He doesn't wear a shirt, but he does wear a jacket to show off his abs and his chest. What they end up doing is, so Scar gets injured, but then May shows up, does some alchemy. We find out that alchemy can't also do regular alchemy things, so she kind of blows the sides of some train cars to create a smoke haze, and so she and Scar can get away. So they're out of the picture for now. Then we also see where the boys are all attacking, because Gluttony shows up, and Gluttony is trying to, you know, eat people, as he does, and they manage to basically kind of, like, attack him and get him to demolish, and then he's rebuilding himself. So Ling is like, get me some cable. Ed transmutes some cable out of a rail tie, and he ties up Gluttony, and the idea being, well, Gluttony is still regenerating while this happens, and they basically have Gluttony trapped, because he's kind of, like, become he's just too big to slip out of the cables or whatever. So now they have this big old ball of Gluttony. And as this happens, someone comes Tokyo drifting out of the random. and it's going, you know, it's a woman. Get in! And it's very clearly Hawkeye. Hawkeye has put down her hair and put on some glasses. So she's Clark Kenting this situation. Ling, you know, puts Gluttony in the car, and then Gluttony gets in the car, and they get in the car, and they're going, and he's just like, no, I need you to go find my girl. He doesn't say that. I need you to go find Lan Fan. And, you know, Hawkeye has, again, mad Tokyo drifting skills going on here. She's like, fine. So they go Tokyo drifting off to go find Lan Fan at an agreed upon point. The teams have all agreed they're going to go meet at a house outside town. Mustang has given this order, so they're all going to meet there in the end. Let's see, so where are Ed and Al for right now? They are done with the picture for right now. Ed and Al go see Winry off, you know, at the train station, and Ed makes this declaration that Winry doesn't hear originally, because the whistle goes off, but then he has to yell through the train station, the next time I make you cry, it's going to be tears of happiness! He declares in his very shonen way. And as the train's pulling away, Winry is like, oh, I've fallen in love with him. Like, Winry is just like, I think I'm falling in love with Ed. Like, ta-da!
Good job!
So not only do you have Ed making this declaration, and Al is not the one who says it, it's Ed who says it. And, Al does not go in with him at the chorus, so it's not the Elric brothers making this declaration. It's Ed who's making this declaration. So King Bradley, I believe, he's still chasing down, Lan Fan and Ling, but is not letting on because he's still performing his King Bradley duties. But at this point, we don't know the state of Lan Fan because we have seen Ling pop up, and we're like, oh shit, yep. Where's Lan Fan? Well, King Bradley stumbles through an alley and he sees some blood and he follows the blood, and we've cut to Wrath has found an arm tied to a stray dog. Lan Fan has cut off her arm because it was severely damaged. She has cut off her arm, and we cut to her in the sewers, wrapped with Ling's jacket wrapped around her stump of a wound going on here. And then Ling and Hawkeye pick her up, and they end up meeting at this safe, I guess basically a safe house outside of the city, and Mustang has brought Dr. Knox, who's the doctor we saw previously in the hospital with Mustang, where Havoc was there too. So they bring Dr. Knox out, and he's like, well, I mostly deal with cadavers, so oh well. And this
is gonna hurt.
It's gonna hurt, I guess. And he gets Lan Fan, the wound, stitched up, essentially. Mm-hmm. So Lan Fan currently has no arm. Ling feels extremely guilty about this because he's like, I was prepared to make sacrifices. I was not prepared for others to make sacrifices, basically. Ed and Al make their way out to this safe house as well, and we end with... Oh, Ling reveals to the rest of the group that King Bradley's a homunculus, and they're like, oh, shit! And they also are like, but that can't be because he has a son. And Dr. Knox goes, no, the son's adopted, so he could definitely be a homunculus. By the way, because the reason is homunculus can't reproduce. They don't have reproductive capability, so...
Gotcha.
Like, oh shit, so I guess King Bradley is a homunculus. Guess we gotta believe Ling. And at the end of the episode, though, Gluttony's been tied up, and Gluttony hears, oh, Mustang. He knows Mustang is there, and he knows Mustang was the one who killed Lust. And from what we can tell, basically, Gluttony has a very low childlike IQ kind of a thing going on. Mm-hmm, yeah. So he was attached to Lust, and now he's like, I'm gonna kill you. And he bursts through these cables, and his stomach opens up, and he has these weird, like, teeth claws coming out of his stomach, and he just goes, Bleh! And he disintegrates, he just disintegrates everything in its path when he does this from his stomach. Hawkeye, is keeping guard outside during all this, and she hears this come out, like a boom explosion, and then she's, like, standing in the trench, like, what's going on? And they're like, get out of the way, Hawkeye, and then, Bleh! And her gun gets chopped in half, literally disintegrated in half. So we're setting this up to, next episode is going to be this big fight with Gluttony. By the way, during all this stuff going on, Xiao Mei, the panda that Mei has, got separated, and so currently the panda is in Alphonse's suit of armor.
Yes! Yes!
That happens. And also, I do need to mention, because I'll be honest, I don't remember if this plays into the story later on, but Ed and Al go back to the military HQ to go because Winry has been taken into the military custody, basically. And when they go to pick her up, they find out she's in a room with King Bradley. This is before they find out he's a homunculus. Mm-hmm. And he says, basically, that's a great friend you got there. She's very honest, and you should take care of her. And so I'm like, I'm pretty sure that means in the future he's going to kind of keep Winry as a pawn, basically. But I'm like, I actually don't remember if that plays into anything. So let me just note that in the recording. Just for future reference, but this is they find out King Bradley's a homunculus, right? They're just like, oh, it's weird that the king of our country is hanging out with our friend. Anyway, let's cut to next episode. So Inside the Belly is basically a long fight between Ling and Ed versus Gluttony, because they go off, Mustang, Ling, and Ed go off into the woods around the safe house to go fight Gluttony, but Mustang, having been pierced in the kidneys about 2 days ago, is like, oh, and he can't fight. Because, again, he's been pierced through his body, through his kidneys, or something else down there. So yeah, he might be a little out of shape right now. Envy also shows up, and again, this whole thing of Ed and Al are both like, they can't kill us, so let's just go at this here and see how far we can get killing them, basically. And Dr. Knox has a car. They shove Hawkeye, Lan Fan, and Mustang into the car, and they have this whole thing about we can't let children fight because if you don't know, Ed is 15, Ling is also 15, Al is 14. So they have little teenage kids, like in typical shonen fashion, fighting their battles for them. And Ling takes on Envy, and they, go fighty, and Ed and Al are taking on Gluttony. This is a long fight. We get this whole thing. King Bradley, we cut to King Bradley at one point he has an outdoor conversation with a creepy voice. We deduce is another homunculus. We don't know who creepy voice is yet. Because basically creepy voice is being like, oh, you let them do this and you let them get away, and I won't tell father, but you need to know that you're fucking around. And King Bradley is like, yeah, I know, I'm 60, I know what I'm doing. And in the inside we see, and this is actually a very interesting story dynamic that I think is just interesting, and it's sort of like in the questions it raises, where we're seeing dinner with King Bradley and his wife and their son. And their son did this, like, an essay about his dad. And this whole, and it's overlaid with scenes of the boys fighting Gluttony and Envy, and it's going about how my dad is so cool, and he fights for the country, and he always protects the people, and blah, 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 blah. Right. At the end of the episode, here's what ends up happening is Gluttony ends up using his Destructo Ray, and he beams Ed and half of Ling into his stomach. So, and Alphonse reaches his hand out, and Alphonse just has lost a hand now. And, Alphonse is like, get them out, let them out, and Gluttony's like, I can't, I don't know how to do that. And we end the episode with the 30-second terror that our protagonist has now been eaten, but we know he's our protagonist, so he can't have been eaten. And in the next episode preview, we see that Ling and Ed are just fine, and they're just inside Gluttony's stomach. And so we're gonna have some...
They're fine.
We're gonna have some weirdness going on next episode. Oh, wait a minute, I forgot, actually, the real ending of the episode.
Oh, geez.
Mustang has finally reported to HQ.
Right.
And I think I forgot this, because as I said to you in the chat, oh, I forgot this happened this early. My famous catchphrase. And Mustang is reporting to General Raven. And back at Eastern Command, where Mustang used to be stationed, he was under a guy named General Grumman. Grumman is basically saying, go talk to Raven. If he still does this, that means he's still a good person and he can be on your side. And Mustang has the voice of Hughes in his mind saying, you need to get allies. Okay, so Mustang goes over, and they have some funniness, like Raven it's funny what they do, and Raven's like, okay, I gotta go have a meeting, and Mustang's like, okay, and so he goes with him. And then, he's like, how are you acclimating to Central? And Mustang says, oh, it's really hard. Also, I'm hearing rumors, about, I think one was about Scar, and one was about something else, and then he's like, or that King Bradley's a homunculus. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. They open the door to his meeting, and Raven suddenly turns and is like, tell that joke again about King Bradley being a homunculus, and all these other generals and military men are staring at them over tea, and then King Bradley walks in being like, that's right, Mustang, talk to you about being a homunculus. And it ends there with Mustang being like, oh my god, Hughes, when you were saying that, you didn't mean that I have to prevent, the rottenness is inside us already. Like, it's not just external forces, it's, the inside is already rotten. So my previous... You meant... Oh. My previous statement about something is rotten in the state of a mistress is actually really true. More so than previously implied of just King Bradley being a bad guy. Well... And I think it's interesting because it notes that you're like, oh, well, we're going to have more allies. And you're like, oh, no, if this Raven guy was cool and now he's not cool, then it just kind of proves that there's a lot stronger evil forces at work that can turn a person. Uh-huh. So, yeah, that's where we are.
Whew. Whew. Yeah, this was... So, Gluttony is wild, this little Winnie the Pooh voice. That's the thing is, he's a homunculus and he's freaky, but now you really see in this episode how much more childlike he kind of is.
And he's terrifyingly strong, too. Like, you're like, oh, he's... Like, previously we were like, oh, he would eat people, fine. However, as long as you're not by him, he won't eat you. But now he has the Destructo Ray. Mm-hmm. So now he's dangerous also at long distance.
And also the fact that when he does that, and they're like, give him back, and he's like, I don't know how.
Yeah.
There's just something about a monster, or if I don't want to call him a monster because he has a personality, but something about a villain who says, I don't actually know how my own shit works.
Yeah, like I can't undo it because I don't know how to undo it.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's on brand for this show, but it's absolutely on brand. All these people who are, either playing with these forces or were played with because of these forces. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I'm going to be real with you. I only know X amount of my own stuff.
Right.
And just, oh my god, that shot, though, of, like, the half of him.
Oh, yeah, and the thing that gets me is, like, if Gluttony destroys a thing and he destroys it midway, he is like, it's like a clean cut through...
Yeah.
Let's say, like Al has lost a hand, and it's like a clean cut through his arm. And he literally has like a weird, like a stump at the end. Like his armor has literally been cut in the middle. And so Ling literally has like half his body eaten up, and it's totally eaten up. And then Ling is like just his lower torso and his legs, and then it just disintegrates. So it isn't like, oh, a bloody stump is left behind. It does disintegrate, which I think implies that the rest of the object is then well, no, that doesn't make any sense because Alphonse is still there. I don't know. I was going to say that it implies that the rest of the thing is taken inside Gluttony. Because like I said, Ling clearly has the rest of his body next episode.
I mean, it's probably because they took, like, his upper half, his brain meats, maybe?
I wonder if it's because he's organic and Alphonse is not organic. Because Gluttony destroyed part of the house but didn't take the whole house with him.
Yeah, that's true.
That's probably it.
That's true.
So, yeah.
The mechanics of all this horror.
Yes.
Like, oh my god, it's bad. Let's figure out what kind of bad.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting, just cutting back to pre-Gluttony thing, I remembered, and I always actually really love this reveal of the fact that we think, for instance, because Lan Fan is saying to Ling when they're in the sewers, and like Ling is like, no, you have to stay on, I can't lose you, blah, blah, blah. Lan Fan is like, no, I'm only slowing you down. And so you're logically, again, like both of our shows have avoided cliches today, where you're thinking, oh, he's gonna let her, it'll be a heroic sacrifice. No, she literally just cuts off her arm.
Yeah.
Like, that is what she decides needs to be done, is she's like, oh, I know. And also, what she ends up saying later on, is she's like, oh, Full Metal, when we had that fight in Rush Valley, and you took your arm off, his automail arm, and put it in a stack of rubble as a distraction. She's like, I did the same thing, except mine was tying my bloody arm to a stray dog.
It's like, okay, look, there are a few other differences in the plan, besides one was in rubble and one was on a dog. There's maybe
a few differences there.
There's a major difference between the two. Like, but... Oh my gosh. I mean...
I also think that it actually is interesting because we've seen at the very beginning of the show, we know Ed and Al lost their bodies.
Right.
I think it's interesting because we've kind of only just met this character, and we understand very quickly how high the stakes are and how these characters are willing to meet the stakes, because this is a thing, like that whole thing where she decides to cut her arm off. Yeah. Emphasize this. Is introduced very quickly after we've just met the character, and she hasn't been in all the episodes. And so we actually know we know really quickly, like, oh, like, Lan Fan is here to do some shit. And, yeah, just being injured is not going to stop her.
No! You kind of wonder, like, in this setting where automail is a thing, alchemy is a thing, alkahestry is a thing, it's like, what is the mentality about one's body?
That is true.
It's like, nowadays, I mean, we, in the real world, absolutely have prosthetics. We have awesome prosthetics. And, we can, if you have a 3D printer and some time, you can make 50 billion prosthetics for the children's hospital up the road. But, like, you see all these people with automail. You see dogs with automail legs. And
right, because the whole thing is that, like, in addition to alchemy in this world, automail exists. And even though we do have prosthetics, we don't have them like automail exists.
Yeah.
The whole thing about automail is that it literally plugs into your nervous system, and you can then control your limb with your brain.
Yeah, where it's actually like having the limb back, but
yeah.
Which, I mean, I know that there are, progress is always being made, but that is like a high-end thing, and it's like, you kind of wonder because her reaction was not, oh God, well, I have one arm now. It's, hey, I'm gonna need one of those new arms.
I'm gonna need one of those fancy magic robot arms, please.
Yeah, it's when you're in a world where fancy magic robot arms are a thing that lots of people have, then, and, slicing off your own arm is probably a slight, the sacrifice is more the pain and will I die before I get this bandaged up.
Exactly.
As opposed to, oh my God, my arm.
Exactly. So I do understand that it's not as severe, I guess you could say, as it is in our world, in our life.
Still messed up.
But it's still messed up. And also, the thing is, outside of Rush Valley, you don't really see a lot of people with automail in the series.
Right.
Like, it's in Rush, because Rush Valley is a center of automail, but we so far have never met a character who has automail outside of Ed that's not in Rush Valley.
Right.
So I think it's an interesting... I guess it's one of those, like, uncommon things, because you'd rather not.
Yeah, it's like, look, given the choice, I'd like to keep all of me, but should it happen, I do
Should
have
it happen,
options.
I do have fancy robot technology waiting for my beck and call, so yeah.
I mean, and also the fact that Ed's like, I'd like a real arm and leg again.
That too, exactly.
That too. One thing I really loved about this episode, and it's tiny, but I love it. I mean, I have loved the panda ever since we've seen it, and I love Alphonse having this panda, but I also love when it tries to bite him.
Oh yes.
And he's just like, it's okay, little buddy. And the panda just, all of a sudden, his entire worldview shifts. You can just see, and it's a great little illustration of it where he's got this he's got this pecking order, this triangle, and it's like, it's him, I can't remember her name.
Mei Chang.
It's like him and Mei at the top, and then everyone else below them, and then all of a sudden Alphonse just drops onto the top of the pecking order, and you can see that this panda's whole world has been rocked.
I'm going to take a slight adjustment to that. So at the top of the pyramid is the panda and Mei, and then beneath them is Scar, and then beneath Scar is everybody else.
So
Scar is actually above the pecking order.
Okay. So, yeah, okay. I knew that there...
And then Alphonse slams on top of the pyramid as being above the panda. I think the panda's name is Xiaomei. Above Xiaomei and Mei, and the panda freaks out.
I have never seen a panda's worldview get rocked so hard. It was... I mean, we talk about, Fearless Chibi all the time in this show, but this is one of the places where it really pays off. It's such a good little internal moment, and it's like, and it's so great because all Al does is go, buddy, and show that he cannot be
injured.
It cannot be injured. It's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh no. I got nothing on him. Uh-oh. It's like, and then he's like, now sit in my helmet.
Yes.
So good.
Yes.
I like that we have this complete whiplash between, Al and a panda, and, oh my God, an arm, and a guy, blasted in half, and now, we're in tummy hell, and...
Yeah.
Yeah, next episode is in tummy hell from the looks of it.
Tummy hell.
Tummy hell.
Yeah. Yep, that's what's... Yeah, and I don't remember tummy hell very well.
I mean, yeah, we did get a little tiny bit of that at the end where Ed's just like, where the hell?
We know there's a lot of random crap there, and we know that it's filled with blood.
And skeletons.
And that's all we know so far. And yeah, I know that some stuff's going to be, revealed next time, but again, I'm doing the whole, I don't remember what exactly is coming up next.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited and terrified.
Yeah, and not only that, but we have, again, Mustang has now realized that, oh dear God, everyone around me is corrupt. Oh dear God, help. So we have that going on too.
Yeah, that scene with the let's talk over tea, and just to add insult to injury, everyone's got a teacup.
Yes, they are in fact all drinking tea.
They are in fact. I was like, yeah, buddy, what's this crazy rumor? Go on.
I do also part of this actually happens at night, and so Mustang and Hawkeye have driven over to HQ, and Mustang basically tells Hawkeye's positioned outside with the car, and he's like, if I don't come back, you need to get away and all that. And she goes, I can't follow that order, sir. And he's like, what do you mean you can't follow that order? And so he's like, fine, I will come back. And she's like, yep, you got it.
Yeah, it's like, will you wait out here if I tell you I'll be back? Yes, sir.
Yes, exactly.
Don't do that bravery thing where it's like,
yeah, don't do that bravery bullshit.
if something happens to me and I don't go back, shut up.
Mm-hmm. So I think that actually leads into the other thing. We were talking about, let's have a corner of the show called Shipping Corner.
Yeah, Shipping Corner.
But we already extensively talked about Sam and Annie.
That's true. So we've taken care of one half of Shipping Corner.
Yeah, so the other half of Shipping Corner, as I was telling Kara, I was like, Fullmetal Alchemist has about 6 canon relationships it pushes in the show, I think.
Gosh.
And we've seen a couple of them, but the ones we see here, I would argue, Ed and Winry is the obvious one. We see Ling and Lan Fan, and we see Mustang and Hawkeye.
Yes.
I think like Ed and Winry is just the obvious one, and
yeah.
I've already talked about it, so yeah, I mean, that's fine. And I think I've also talked about Ling and Lan Fan,
yes.
which I've actually, to be honest, never really thought a whole lot about their relationship before.
But
like,
look
I knew
at
it was
him.
there.
Look at him. Look at him. I
know.
mean, he's sitting around that, and this is the selfishest dude we have seen. This dude just climbs in the window like, hey, I want to be immortal. And
hey, I want to eat all your food.
And now we just see him sitting around this corner like, this is not a sacrifice I was prepared to make. And I'm like, oh no. Oh no.
Yeah.
So, man, by the end of this podcast, we're going to be juggling like 12 ships.
I know.
Between our shows. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm actually so excited to have the whole back half of this show to be like, oh.
It's ships. And then, of course, the other one, Mustang and Hawkeye, which we've already talked about.
Sure, but
I think it came again into prominence again.
Oh, yeah.
Where that whole ending bit. Because, I mean, it does need to be said that Mustang does outrank Hawkeye. Like, he is her superior directly. So there is that whole thing where she's always like, sir, and all that. I think she's only called him sir so far.
Right.
But what I think is really interesting about the two of them is that they trade off in the protectiveness dynamic.
They sure do.
More so than many, many other characters in relationships, where obviously the two of them are different. Like, you remember, Mustang is the fire alchemist, and Hawkeye is gun.
Yes. Not gun alchemist, gun. I mean, she's pretty
gun alchemist.
She's pretty close to. I've said this before, but it really is true. She's very close to the Tetragrammaton clerics in Equilibrium. Although she has not actually, she's gone from fire every gun I have on my person, which is many. She hasn't gone to the now that the gun is empty, I am just going to bash you with it.
Yeah.
But that would be not yet.
One of my favorite moves she does actually in this episode was when Gluttony eats half her gun. She drops it, pulls out 2 pistols from her body, points one at Gluttony and one at a rubble pile, because the rubble pile has, I think, Alphonse in it.
Uh-huh.
But she immediately has her 2 marks. Like, she sees Gluttony as the obvious threat, but then is like, oh, there's a pile of unknown over there. I'm gonna make sure I have my sights on it, too.
God, she's so good.
Hawkeye is such a excellent character for, like, a marksman.
I love her.
And I do love how she gives... Oh, I think this might be a plot-relevant thing, so I'm gonna mention it again. Because this is like a literal Chekhov's gun. It's the point where Hawkeye gives Ed a pistol. Like, she gives him a handgun.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, you need to take this. So the gang is gonna get away in the car, and then it's, the teenage boy is left behind. And, Ed is like, ugh, a gun, ugh. And Hawkeye goes, no, it's a tool. You can use it to protect people, too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, well, Chekhov's gun's been introduced, so I'm pretty sure it's going to come into play later.
Oh, yeah. That was really interesting to see him sort of reevaluate what he said to Winry before, which we were saying before was a very sweet thing, and it was. Mm-hmm. But when he was talking about, no, these hands are for creating, not destroying, but then you sort of see him flash back to when he told Winry not to shoot, and he's like, oh, I got to kind of tweak my worldview.
Yeah, exactly. I really like that, where it's characters in this show have their worldviews challenged a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we were joking about it with the panda, but like with Ed, it's sort of like, oh no, she has a point.
Right, and not only that, but especially because Hawkeye, I think it was an excellent decision to have Hawkeye be the character whose power is gun.
Yes,
because she is she is a very well, overall in this series, she's a very well-liked character, so obviously it's not just her abilities that people like about her, but she's a very positive character.
She is.
She's very strong, she's very intelligent, but she's also this kind of like the quiet and the observant, and then she has her thing going on with Mustang and other people around her. She's a very well-rounded character, and I think it's an excellent thing to have her be I'm the marksman, I know how to use guns, and I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like, she's very smart and not just like... And I think it's because also in anime... Actually, this is interesting to note, is that in the O3 anime...
there it is! Drink!
Hawkeye was... Actually, the thing I didn't even realize this until I read it on the wiki, was Hawkeye in the O3 anime is much more prone to using the guns for comedic effect, as in, like, she'll just shoot them at at whatever for a joke, right?
Right.
So it'll be like, there's a whole episode of when she gets her dog that we just saw her with earlier. And one of the jokes was that she's like, they're like, oh, he's peeing in the corner, and she, like, shoots at him and misses it, but it's at the wall. Oh, the dog is too scared to pee now. In the Brotherhood anime, you never see Hawkeye use her guns comedically. She only ever uses her firearms in a serious... when she needs to. And it's extremely interesting, because that was again, I think when most characters, especially in anime, have a gun, it's like, oh, well, they just shoot at random things and ha 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 ha, but it's actually treated the way it needs to be treated in this show, which is like, it's a tool and a very serious tool.
And it's funny because in this show there is I don't want to say so little, but there's the line of what's sacred is pretty fluid. So when you see a character where it's like, okay, this absolutely does not happen. It's like, yeah, because, I mean, we see scenes of people near death, and so you know when something is not touched. I think that's actually, we talked about this before, I think you said, like, if something is a very, very, very important point, they will not go chibi, I don't care. It's like, that just dramatically, it draws so much attention to, look, I know, guys, but we really need to focus up on this. And that's, I like that. It's a technique I did not realize was a technique until the last few episodes. It's like, I think it's really cool this is happening. And now that we see what they won't do it with and what they won't make fun of, and like Hawkeye with their guns, it's like, oh, they're really drawing a very hard line.
Which, I mean, like, just an obvious one is like Lan Fan losing her arm.
Yep.
Because they could have easily done, because I think it's creepy that it's like he finds it on a dog, and that's but they don't like make it into a joke, like, oh, I found it on this stray doggo here. It's like, oh no, and it's just played totally straight, and it's played very seriously because it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and if it had been Ed's automail arm for some reason, it would have been like bloop bloop, but yeah. So gosh, that scene of just that dog chilling there.
I know. Oh,
the dog's like, I don't know what's going on, but this guy's looking at me, so I guess that's cool.
Not only that, but then the dog shakes, like, when dogs are wet, they do the shaky thing. Aww. The dog shakes and gets blood everywhere. Like, it is really unsettling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They can really go there when they want to.
Well, I think that about wraps it up for those things. You want to do a quick sit in violence since we're already running a bit long?
Yeah, we are. Let's do that. So, we had like a choke in Life on Mars this week, right?
That was it. That was my favorite violence from Life on Mars. I remember even saying that.
We had Jean going for twilling, just like
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the violence. Although whatever Mrs. Luckhurst was doing to Jean behind closed doors.
Yeah, there's that too.
Because we actually heard Jean like shouting, and it's like, oh god, what in the world?
And then for the sin in FMA,
I mean, it's probably gonna have to go to. I don't think it's an alchemy sin.
Okay.
I think it's a social sin. I think walking Mustang into that room
Oh.
and lining him up, I think that was the sin.
I think that was yeah, because there wasn't a whole lot of alchemy going on, necessarily. I mean, you could say, like, well, gluttony eating them. Well, yeah, I guess.
But that's what gluttony do.
That what gluttony do, and also I think it's the dramatic tension is slightly undercut by we know Ed's gonna be fine.
Yeah, we know Ed's gonna be fine. I do think it was a social sin where it's like, yeah,
I will say, when I was thinking at the end of the episode, I was like, is this the episode where Mustang reveals his card too early? Is this the one? And then I realized, oh, it is the one.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt so, like, that weird feeling in your stomach. I was so uncomfortable and nervous about what was coming up. I was like, oh, it's happening. It's this scene. Because I just, like, this scene, like, scares the shit out of me.
Oof.
Where you're just like, oh, nothing is safe. And it's not just Kane Bradley. Like, ugh.
I mean, as soon as he was saying it, I was like, dude, I'm not entirely sure. Like, I don't even know enough about this series yet to know if I shouldn't be sure, but it's like, and then you just see that table. Mm-hmm. That long, long table of just everybody, and I'm just like, oh no. Oh no. So yeah. I am, of all the things, it's like, I'm on edge about the gluttony thing, but I have bigger anxiety about Mustang's situation than I do about Ed's.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna lay that out.
It's pretty for serial. Yeah. It's pretty serial.
It's super serial, yeah.
Yeah. Alright. I think that does it for Sin and Violence today. What do you think?
I think it does, so we'll see you next time. This was the Sin and Violence Podcast. I'm Kara.
And I'm Ginger.
And like I said, this is a Sin and Violence Podcast.
The podcast of equivalent exchange.